Getting injured is probably the worst thing physically, mentally for fuck's sake. Getting injured is probably the worst thing that can happen for an athlete or an older wannabe athlete like myself, if you will. And I'm going through at the moment a little psoas injury. It's been going on for 3 to 4 weeks, and it's really kind of bothersome, especially when there's big goals coming up. But in this quick video, I wanted to give you 4 insights, deep insights that I've learned during this process of healing, recovery, and getting over these humps and bumps and injuries. So let's get into it. Number 1, or I would say the very first thing, number 0, if you will, would be the right diagnosis, knowing the problem. And I know that sounds obvious that you need to know what the problem is, but especially with injuries, it's not always that easy. And for this particular one that I'm going through, I actually had first 2.5 weeks, 2 to 2.5 weeks, just wrong diagnosis. I didn't know what the issue was. And when you don't know, you don't know. And that is the worst thing, because you don't really know if you need to strain it, if you need to put a little bit more effort into it, or you need to let go completely and have a full rest, if you will. Although with sports injuries, it's 100% of the time you always need to be moving. And that's what I intuitively thought. But until I found the right doctor who was able to take the echography of the psoas and the hip reflexor, if you will, I was able to know exactly what's going on, what the intended recovery exercises are, and how long I should be expecting for this thing to heal. So number 1, or let's say number 0, if you will, is knowing the problem and having the exact right diagnosis, absolute clear picture of what's going on and what needs to happen in order for you to get better. From there, the first kind of a deep insight that I wanted to share with you guys is that we never really know when it's all going to be taken away from you. And that's a larger subject in a way, but with sports injuries, with athletes, it's maybe a smaller thing, but you can transfer that into life, into business, more appreciating the everyday kind of gifts and training that we go through and we have put ourselves into, because you just never know if you get injured tomorrow or during that session or what comes up in the day after and the weeks coming. And we kind of tend to just take it for granted, a lot of the things that we get presented in life, instead of being grateful and appreciating the process, appreciating the everyday that you actually get to train instead of that you have to train. There's a little bit of a mindset switch. You get to train instead of you have to train. And I'm 100% guaranteed that after this, when I'm over this and I'm back into full training mode, I'm really able to appreciate the everyday grind and everyday work that goes into putting yourself into right spaces and places and into a right frame of mind in order to tackle your goals. So appreciate the process, appreciate where you are and what you are able and you get to train. Number 2, the second deep insight, is especially for older athletes like myself, I'm mid-40s, is we really have to optimize for non-injury. And that kind of sounds obvious as well, but especially when you're a bit of an older one, when we get injured, not if, it's when we get a little bit injured or largely injured, the recovery process is doubled or sometimes even tripled comparing to when we were younger in our early 20s. That's when we recover very quickly. It's a few days, maybe a maximum week, and we are back at it. But now when we are older, it takes so long, it takes us out for so long out of our training that I think it's more worth of during the actual training, maybe lowering the intensity just a little bit, that you're optimizing for not getting injured. You optimize your recovery, your sleep, your nutrition, your recovery protocols like massages and therapies and so on and so forth, like saunas and cold plunges and all these things that are really, really good for you for the recovery. So really optimizing for not getting injured, especially for older athletes, I think is absolute key factor. The third deep insight that I wanted to share with you is during these recoveries and during the illness or injuries, if you will, we actually get to really find out if we are passionate about that sport, that activity that we were engaged in. And for example, in my case, running, I can see that when the thing that you really like to do, that also goes for business and for life, when the thing taken away from you, you get to see like, is that thing, that especially in my case right now, running, do I actually really like it? How passionate I'm about the actual running itself, or am I just chasing the goals? Am I just chasing the fame or the outcomes or the destinations. And in my case, when the running is being taken away, I truly actually crave the running itself. Of course, I want to hit the goals, but the actual training itself is what I'm craving about, and not so much about the goals. Which the milestones are fantastic, but you really find out what you actually passionate about, what you like, when that thing is taken away from you. So you can, again, as I mentioned, you can take that into business and the life itself. Take that thing away from you, what you think if you're passionate about, and kind of get to see if you're actually passionate about it. Which takes us to number 4, which again becomes about appreciating and loving the process instead of the destination. Because when we are injured, and especially if you don't really know when you're going to get better, you really have to put your focus, emphasis, and mindset into the process itself. So I think that's absolute key factor to be able to falling in love with the process, falling in love with the actual training itself over the destinations. And I got to see that again and again and again during this recovery period, which is still going on. It's still not done. So if I start thinking about, what's going to happen when I'm better, when I'm good, and when I get to go back into training, instead of really falling in love with the recovery process, which in love it's in brackets, but appreciating the process is a force deep inside that I really get to embody and really like feel it instead of just thinking about it. So hopefully that was helpful. If you're going through some injuries, what have you learned? Maybe leave a comment below. I would love to know. And while you're at it, if you don't mind subscribing and liking the video, that would help the channel and myself a lot. Much appreciated. And see you guys in the next one.